Greetings, folkaroos. It's Haley, and welcome back to another recap video of the Out of Town meetup. And this one was a mixed bag. To be real, this one was a mixed bag. I had some absolutely disastrous showings, but then I had some ridiculous calculations that kind of even impressed me afterwards. So I guess now I'm back to my normal chess skill, back to the normal human standard of doing good sometimes, doing bad sometimes. So I guess there's nothing really much more to say about that. Let's just hop right on into the video. And uh, I don't know what happened. I misspoke there. But not two, for our first game, I played a gay guy by the. I played a guy by the name of Luke. Yeah, and I gave him the GM title, as you can see here, because his skill level was way higher than mine. I will give this guy that credit. And when I talked to Jim afterwards, who was the guy I played after Luke, he told me, yeah, the nickname that he's given down at the chess tournament building is the Dream Crusher. And oh boy, it was apt. But anyway, I start off with the weight pieces. I'm going to put the review on real quick. And you can see here that he played at 95% accuracy. So yeah, let's just get into that. E4, C5, and we get into a bunch of Sicilian theory. Boom, 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 and boom. So this is where the theory ended in this game, because in this position, the best move for white is to just play G4 and start an attack on this side of the board, and meet B4 by playing knight A4. And then if H6, to take this and play knight B6, hitting this and this, right? Rook B8, and not taking the bishop, but playing queen to D4. I don't know about this, because I would be afraid of this, but of course you can just take that. This seems like a really weird way to play. I guess the idea is maybe H4 G5 takes, and then you hit this when the bishop is developed and this rook is defended. But I guess it's just to put the queen in the center of the board, but it's a funny way to play. But I play bishop to E2 in this position, which apparently is a bit inaccurate, because it allows black to play bishop to B7 and accelerate his development. And this bishop for white is kind of placed on a poor square. I was also sort of calculating any sacrifices over here, but those all just fall really short due to the lineup here. There's nothing queen to b8 sure doesn't even attack the knight, and I could play bishop f4, even attacking the queen, and this is defended. It looks pretty good. Wrong pawn. E5, right? E5 hits the bishop. It gains foothold in the center, and after bishop e3, bishop b4. If c3 is played, bishop back to e7. The queen is blocked. This knight is kind of dumb. And you're going to have to do something with this bishop. And whenever that bishop moves, that knight has to move. And there are two open lines on that side of the board, right? That's just kind of the idea. But he, in this position, plays bishop e7. Then I play knight to b3, because I'm looking at this dark square here, maybe trying to get in there and grab that bishop before it can open up. So I can maybe do something with this pawn structure over here without worrying about maybe if a bishop can pick it off in the future. He goes rook c8. He's just trying to, I think he's forecasting that I'm going to castle on that side of the board. So he's trying to marshal his forces for an attack. Knight to c5, and he goes knight e5. I take. Funny thing that happened here. Yeah, so I go here, right? He plays this, and I castled in this position originally. Do you see what's wrong with that? Uh, it's pretty obvious. That just loses a knight. And then the second I left my hand left the king, I was just like, oh my god, did I actually just do that? And he allowed me a take back, so I took. Really don't know why I second guess myself sometimes because I was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna take and then I'm gonna castle, but I was like, well, why can't I just castle now? Well, because your knight's gonna die, you idiot. Well, he goes knight c4, attacking my queen, and I felt pretty dang uncomfortable moving my queen out of the way like this because of knight e3 here and here. I didn't like that. That was the idea. So bishop takes c4 is classified as a great move because it is the only move in that situation that is any good for white. And now here, rook is on c4. You might, as a beginner player, be like, b3 just kicks the rook out. Well, A, weakens the knight, so the rook can go back and queen c7 can be played, but also bishop to b4 can be played and pin that knight to the queen and double attack the rook, so knight e2 has to be played in this position or else you're just completely losing as white. But then an interesting thing happens here. If queen c7, you can play a4. You can just try to fight on this side of the board, seemingly giving up this pawn. But if black takes it, audience moment, how can you trap the queen? And if you're able to figure it out, the answer is this. Queen can't take this pawn because the rook is unprotected. So I guess I should have clarified, right? I guess I should have clarified. If you either trap the queen or literally blunder mate with boom, 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 d6, and queen d6. So you want to either blunder mate by playing there, or you just lose your queen, right? Or you just go like you can't take the queen either for that matter. So here, boom, just loses the queen. And that's what happened there. But he didn't do that because I didn't play b3. And instead I went rook a to d1, bishop b4. Like I said, this is super duper annoying. And now b3 is literally not even an option. Bishop to d4. I'm defending it this way and also putting pressure on this, which I thought would damage the structure. But actually, I wouldn't even like that because it just opens his rook right on my king. Queen to c6 is a very interesting move. It just bears right down on this. It just bears down. And then I make a disastrous blunder. I play a3, attacking the bishop, being like, hey, why don't you get out of here? But I blunder an incredible tactic. Rook takes d4. And then audience moment, how can he win my queen in this position? And if you were able to figure it out, the answer is using this queen, exploiting this lineup, kaboom, and I resigned the game. Because I did not see that. And I was like, hey, okay, that was a bad showing for me. Maybe that was just a really good game from him, really bad game from me. So I'm going to play again. And I'm on the black pieces this time. So let's see what happens. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well, but we're still going to look at it anyway, just to relive the pain. So we get a Caro-Kann, d4, d5. And then this was one of the most embarrassing things that has ever happened to me in literally the history of these meetups this summer. The following moves were the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me at these meetups. So, you know that I've been teaching this guy Shane at this meetup how to play against the tall variation of the Caro-Kann. And the answer to that is h6, right? And if g4, then bishop d7. And if bishop d3, then takes, and e6. This is what I have been teaching Shane. This is what I have known for like a couple years at this point, not several, probably just a couple. Right. So after g4, can anyone explain to me why I went here? I just blitzed at this move and he played e6 and I just sat there like I sat there for a solid minute just like questioning my very existence. It's like, do I even have any right to be teaching this anymore? Because this is one of those rare instances where instead of the student becoming the teacher now becomes the student, but somebody else's student in this case. Either way, it's embarrassing. And I just blunder this huge damage to my pawn structure, and this bishop just is absolutely terrible. bishop d3, and you might be like, well, why don't you just take right now? The reason I don't take right now is because this is unstoppable. I cannot stop the queen from coming here. So the best move is just c5. And if queen to g6 check, king d7, I can't stop that from coming in after bishop to d3. And if I want to prevent that, I play g6. Now, if you remember, this is pretty much exactly like the game between me and Shane when he played that awful f6 move against the tall variation. It's what it that this is what it looked like, right? Like this is I'm playing at that level right now. Bishop d3, g6, and g5. G5. And this may look like the wrong pawn to push because you want to exploit this pin, right? Yeah, you can just do that on the next move. He could have just done it here because there's nothing I could do about that. Like, I could take that pawn, right? But then I would be inviting this, which is yet another pin. So I can't even re-sacrifice my bishop back if he took that, because I would just lose my rook. So it's just absolutely disastrous because I fell asleep in the opening once again. You know what's funny? It seems like that happens in these meetups a lot more than the in-town meetup. It seems like I just completely fall asleep at the board during the opening and then get a much worse position. Like, I don't know why. I think it's because a lot of more games here are timed, so I'm rushed. I just like absolutely lose it in the opening. It's just not like me, right? F4, knight F3. He massively is constraining my position. These bishops suck, right? These bishops absolutely just are very bad. And but he did it slightly improperly. Audience moment. In positions where the pawns are on these squares, d4, it often comes from d4 openings, but it could come from openings like the Caro-Kann when played as disastrously as I just played it. What is a move that you can play to undermine white's center? And I've talked about this even in the previous video. And if you're able to remember, pawn to c5. And he actually like looked at the board for a little bit after this, and he was like, "Man, I really don't like the look of c5." And I was like, "Okay, I'm doing something," because he's one of those people that like to talk aloud. Sometimes he's like, "Man, I don't like the look of c5. I just, I don't like playing c3 because the knight, you know." And then like I just he can develop, right? Oh boy, it's still not going to be pretty though. Queen to b6. You know, I'm doing my best to put pressure on that, but actually it's not at all hanging right now, and he could just play bishop to c2 at any time to clear up the queen's defense of that pawn, which he does right now. So even if I go here and here, I still won't be able to take it. And if I go here, which for some reason I did, because I'm like, well, I'm just going to put more pressure on this, d takes c5, queen takes c5, and there's no bishop e3, there's really no b4, but just like I can't take that because my bishop gets trapped. Look at how insane that is. My bishop just gets trapped, and my queen is awfully mispositioned. Even though I am stopping him from castling, I'm stopping him. Oh my god, it's really still not that good because this queen can get bullied in like 10 gazillion different ways, right? So h5, yeah, he plays h5 after I go knight b8, takes, and then here. And it wasn't as accurate for him to do it this way because he allowed me to take here so that there's no pin on this bishop, so I can actually re-sack it and then move the king out of the way. So that was, again, slightly inaccurate from him, but like I'm not this guy is probably like 1800 skill level, so I'm not trying to tell the Dream Crusher how to play chess. Bishop takes e5 because I desperately wanted to prevent this, although that literally was the best case scenario. I was supposed to play this, invite knight f7, completely losing my rook, and then go king to c7, and after this to take with the bishop, and then take with the queen. This is the best thing that could happen for me in this position. How sad is that? Whew. Here, here, here. I'm trying my best to fight back in the center. I'm going to play knight to c6 and target it because if bishop e3, then queen b2. I thought I still had a prayer. Queen takes d4. And I didn't play knight c6 because I was like, well, I don't like the fact that here, and I can't respond to this. So he can just play rook takes h5 and defend that. And I have two sets of doubled pawns, one of them being isolated, and I'm down material and my pieces are undeveloped. Like this just looks nightmarish. So I go there. I'm continuing to stop him from castling, and I move the queen out of the way. Knight a3, attacking my queen. I go back to d7. I'm like, okay, my next move is going to be knight c6. Is this really a nightmare anymore? I don't know. Castles. In this position, he castles, and I play knight to c6. Audience moment. What is a move that he could play to attack my king in this position as an intermezzo between when he moves his queen? And if you're able to figure it out, the answer is rook f8. Obviously losing the rook, but he has to move the queen. This is so crazy. This is so crazy. If this, there's checkmate in one. Audience moment again. Find the checkmate in one in this position. This is really, really not that easy to see. And if you're able to figure it out, the answer is knight b5, controlling these two squares, and the queen controls this diagonal, and the rook controls this back rank. Just a perfect tapestry of control of those squares, and the king is mated right next to his wife, his loyal steed, and a bunch of his minions. That is just very depressing. Queen e3 though, and then I go queen to c7 because I'm like, well, if I can target this pawn, then maybe I can get a beneficial trade of queens, and it's a little bit less bad of a position. But rook f8, and he has pretty much the same idea in this position. After this and this, which I don't play. After this, I resign. But if I played this, he had mate in 2 with this and then the knight b5 move, which forks the queen and king and mates the king at the same time. Okay, let's move on from those games. I'm not getting my dreams crushed anymore. Now I'm moving on to play gym. Now, hopefully these games will go a little bit better, which is why I named this video The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because this game was the good. Anyway, let's pop on the review and get into it. So I was on the black pieces. I play another Caro-Kann, and we get the F4 Caro-Kann, which the nickname that I give this is the useless Caro-Kann, because F4, just in and of itself, doesn't really do anything to combat Black's idea in the Caro-Kann, which is to strike back at the center. And what you're left with after this is just a random F-pawn, an open diagonal, this open diagonal, and nothing else to show for it when Black has a center pawn. And knight c6 in this, and you can challenge that f-pawn even. Like, this is the useless Caro-Kann because it doesn't do anything in white's favor. Knight f3, he develops behind it. Knight f6, check. This is another kind of useless move in the Caro-Kann a lot of times because I'm perfectly happy giving this up because it fortifies my center and it opens up a diagonal for this bishop as well as e6 and diagonals for this. Just very easy development, and this pawn is not going to be taken anytime soon. Right? And if d4 in this position, then bishop a6 is just really powerful because you can't castle. And if knight c3 trying to play knight e2, queen c7, knight e2, then e6, and you're just absolutely killing it as Black. But instead of taking, he castled, which is a blunder. Audience moment, why is this a blunder? I'm going to give you a little bit less info on this one. Why is this a blunder? And if you're able to figure it out, the answer is because the king and the bishop are placed so that queen to b6 wins the bishop on the spot. And after I played the move bishop to g4 and hit the clock, I was like, damn it, I had queen to b6 check. But hey, I called this game the good. I was able to use that idea of this open diagonal that I talked about earlier to win a piece in the future. Don't worry. Here, like I said, perfectly fine with this. H3. And this is another common motif in the Caro-Kann is that normally you don't like want to trade a bishop for knight for no reason, but in the Caro-Kann you trade it like this because you're going to set up on the light squares. And having a light squared bishop try to navigate around all these pawns would be a bit cumbersome. So you just want to open up lines for your dark squared bishop and fortify your center like this while bringing the queen out to a pretty useless square. Right, that's the idea. D3, trying to open the bishop, maybe get it developed over here. Bishop D6, I'm going to play queen C7 and just pressure that pawn for the rest of eternity. F5. Okay, so in this position, I should have played queen to B6, but the move that I did play in the game now is the answer to the audience moment. Audience moment. What is a good positional move that you can play? Because here, this move is obviously interested in getting me to take and damage my structure and open up this file. I mean, obviously, it's not to play queen f4. I just misclicked there. It's to damage this, open up the e file, right? And just try to attack me like this and split my pawns, right? So I don't do that. Instead, I play a good positional move that denies the purpose of this move. Audience moment, what is it? And if you're able to figure it out, e5. Just shutting the door on that opening up, and I'm going to castle and put a rook behind that pawn and then possibly push it to hit the queen. Right, but I played in this position, which is a little bit suboptimal, apparently. B3 I didn't like, because why are you opening up these squares? Like, sure, you're going to get the bishop out here, but I'm going to castle or just play e4, and this bishop won't be doing anything. E4 takes, I hit the queen, and he goes back. I was perfectly willing to allow the pin here because it is defended by the knight. Also, if the rook pins, here, look, can you find the move that I calculated here to just win a clean piece? And if you're able to figure it out, the answer is bishop to e5 because this is guarded. It's not like it's guarded by a rook or queen or anything. This is guarded. It's still attacking the queen, and that is attacking the rook. So I'm going to end up winning a piece here. Queen e2, I just castle to put the rook behind, bishop to b2, and I played queen e7, adding extra defenders. I don't know why I didn't put the rook there. That's really confusing. Maybe I just wanted to do this. Knight to c3. And now I go here because I'm trying to pin the knight. I mean, knight to d1 could just also be played. But rook a to b1, and here's where I use that tactic to win a piece. It starts off in a very innocent-looking fashion with this. But what happens after takes? How can I win that bishop? And if you're able to figure it out, it should be pretty easy because I gave you a lot of hints. Queen to c5 just wins the bishop. So bishop takes c3, takes, and queen c5 is a forced win of the bishop. And I am just up a piece. Let's go. b4. I mean, he's really trying anything at this point. He wants to just try to go after that, I guess. e3. I'm trying to get my knight in here and go here. Then he goes here. Audience moment. Instead of moving my queen, what is a move that I can play to make my own counter threat that is just as strong, if not stronger? And if you're able to figure it out, the answer is this, the move I just talked about earlier, which is not to protect the queen, believe me. The answer to this was not to lose my queen and attack the queen on the next move. I'm not going into me attack queen mode, but the idea was to go here. Hitting the king and queen, which is most importantly undefended. By the way, if the position looked different, knight e4 would not be as good because here, king here, boom, boom. And I lose my piece back because it's defended. And then this is going to fall. So it's very important that the queen is undefended. But all those factors added up to make knight e4 possible. He goes rook f3, opening up a check, so I give it. And then swing back down and play this. I'm just trying to double up on that pawn, right? Takes. Yeah, there. I just have too many threats. If he moves his queen at all, I'm gonna get to that back rank, right? Queen c4, rook d1. I trade rooks, and then I go here. And the game would have ended. He resigned here, by the way, but the game would have ended king g1, queen takes c3, king h2, and not even taking the queen, but doing the ultimate bad manners and going knight to f3, taking that knight that would have taken a free queen and sacrificing it just to play this and this and this. That is the ultimate bad manners. Checkmate. That's how I would have won. I saw most of that. But now we move on to second game versus Jim. And this one was not as much of the good, I will be honest. The beginning was. The begin This was a game, this was a really weird game because in this game I calculated a few like long and crazy lines, but also I made stupid one move mistakes as well. Like just I don't know what is going on in my mind sometimes when I play these games. But anyway, the brilliancy comes on move 4. So we get e4, e5, knight c3, bishop c4, knight a5. The point of this is to just go after my bishop, and if I go here to do this and wreck my pawn structure, right? But instead, there's bishop f7, and I calculated a line here. I calculated the following. Takes here and g6. And what is the move that I calculated would win me a piece back in this position? And if you're able to figure it out, the answer is queen takes e5. Hitting the rook, yes, but also hitting the knight he left out there to try to grab my bishop. So you would have to play bishop g7 and lose the knight, which is like not even the best move. The best move, by the way, is knight c6, attacking my queen, losing the rook, and then playing h6, locking my queen in the corner. Like literally my queen is stuck, and if he gets to play bishop there, then I have to go there and just like kind of stick around, but he's not going to be able to win that queen. It might be just a little uncomfortable. He's not going to be able to win it, and I'm just up 4 points of material. That is what I calculated, but he threw me for a loop when he played king to e6, which is a terrible move due to queen f5 check, king to d6, and d4. The reason that you play d4 is to hit this with 2 pieces, and if takes, then this. Or if takes, you can play bishop f4, and the attack rages on, right? I play knight f3, and knight f3 blunders d6. But you might be like, Haley, can't you still play queen f5? It's not as good in this position, because here, you cannot take on e5. Like, by the way, if this wait, hold on. So queen h5, king e6, queen f5 here, not knight check, but queen e5. But in this position, queen f5 is bad because there's no queen e5 follow-up, and after knight d5, he just goes king to e8, and I am still down a piece, if you will remember, and I have no more attack. I can try to go here, but of course I'll just lose my queen. So I have no more attack. It's over. I can keep checking, but g6 literally forces me to trade my queen. Because if you will see the squares that I can go to, here I can't go to, here I can't go to, or else I'll trade the queens. Here I can't go to, or else I'll lose it. So, as a recap, lose it, trade, lose it, trade, lose it. Lose it and lose it, obviously. So I have to trade my queens. So I go queen to g5, just accepting the fact that this is going to happen. And he's going to play a move like bishop e7, and I'm going to have to suffer in a minor piece endgame down a piece. I just kind of accepted that at this point. But queen to g5, he plays this and allows my queen to run. So I was like, oh, I still have my queen. As long as I still have my queen, I still have a chance, right? Wrong. Knight f6. And I didn't much like the option of, like, retreating back to c3 and then c5 or something, just take and then, like, bishop out. So I was like, "Imma take, and then Imma go here," because I stopped castling, but he can play a move that on the next move would allow for a bishop to kick my queen out. Audience moment, what is that move? And if you're able to figure it out, the answer is queen e7, preparing bishop g7. And I'm not going to stop castling for long. And if I try to do this to get that bishop in there, bishop g7, something like this, the queens get traded. So I was calculating from a distance that I could stay on this diagonal and go here, but I can't stay on the diagonal at all. There's no purchase for me. So instead, I just go d4. I sacrifice a pawn in the center to ruin the pawn structure, and then I castle and bring the queen back. But knight c4. I don't have time to take this because my freaking queen is under attack. And if I play queen to b4, audience moment, what is a move that attacks the queen and defends the b7 pawn? And if you're able to figure it out, the answer is pawn to c5, discovering defense of that pawn. I didn't see that from a distance, as you will see, because I played queen to d3, knight e5, I took, and then I went queen b5. I'm like, okay, I'm at least getting a pawn back. No, I'm freaking not. The queen guards the pawn, and then I had to sulk back to d3, being like, oh my god, I'm being an idiot right now. Bishop to g5, getting a trade of bishops. I don't want that trade, but I get it anyway. But I get it in a more aggressive way. c5, b4. And here I calculated something. b6, right? And then if I like doubled up and he tried to further challenge that pawn so he could actually take it, I calculated that I had queen to b5. So you see, like I was seeing these things, right? I was seeing these things from a distance, but I wasn't seeing the fact that I'm just down a piece and like I need to play super duper aggressively. So I was trying to undermine the structure like this, just trading pawns, right? Just activating my queen. Like I need to be thinking a little bit more aggressively than that. Rook f8, I double up, and then of course he just trades b6, takes, and then he doubles up, and then he asks for a trade of queens, which I don't want, right? And I also defend this with the rook and queen. Rook to d8. He's just going to keep pushing this. Not only is he up material and he's threatening trades, but he has assets. He has that d pawn. That's really strong. Queen f3, queen c5. Protecting. Because queen f3, the point was I had this. So he defended that. Queen f6, queen e7. Of course, I don't want to trade, so I go queen h8. And I'm like, haha, I've got a pawn. So what? So what? Queen a4 check came there and here. And the reason that I ended my queen up on this square is because of a line like this. If I went queen to b2 instead of giving a4 and going to b5, I blunder a checkmate in 4. Audience moment, can you find the starting move of that combination? Or no, this is the better audience moment. The starting move is this. Only move is this. Audience moment, find the next move in the combination that forces the king to step away from that rook. And if you're able to figure it out, the answer is queen to c5. Check. Here and here. And the reason it's made in 4 is because the queen could block and you take it, delaying it by 1 move, but that's a mate in 3 in its most raw sense. But there and there, I prevent queen to c5. And after rook here, I could take back with the queen, which I don't do for some reason. I don't really know why I was interested in getting hit with this or this, like just why. Queen d5 there, and then I try to pin the bishop to the queen, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go here, 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 and here. Like he'd let me do that in the first place, but there is a way to win my queen in 1 move. Well, not really, but if if I don't find the right move, this would win my queen. Find a quote-unquote bishop sacrifice that would win the queen if I don't make the right move. And if you're able to figure it out, the answer is Chang. And I just sat there at this point. I had like a Morty moment from Rick and Morty. I was like, oh, geez, I think I'm going to lose this game. I don't care if I can go king f2. I'm just going to resign. And that's how that game ended. So that was the four games out of the way. And let's move to the final game that I played. And this, folks, was a spectator's affair. You might remember me playing Jim in a spectator's affair last time, but this was the last started game in this meet. And after about this point in the game, after about move 8, there were like six people standing in a circle around us playing this game, all giving Mel and me advice. Or maybe it was mostly them giving Mel advice because they don't want the young whippersnapper taking down one of their compatriots. But yeah, it was chaotic as they always get there. Because at least in the one here, like the spectating is not as bad because it's usually just like Mike or Ray walking around just like looking at your game while it's happening. Like there's usually other people playing, but at this time, like at this one, like people put away the boards a little bit before it ends. So if you start a game late, you're gonna get a spectator crowd. E4, E5, knight F3, and we get a Ponziani. I wanted to try this out because I didn't play it at this meet so far. Knight F6, D4, and if you might remember, there are two classifications of the lines that can continue from this position. This being the exciting line with this, and this. Of course, D6 being a blunder, and E takes D4 being the boring line because this and this is going to happen. But he makes a mistake right away by playing queen to e7. And it's a mistake because I can just take back, I can fortify, and I can play queen e2 or bishop e2 at any time, re-emerging with this threat on the knight, and then I can just develop my pieces. So queen e7 is like a stalling move that doesn't really stall like effectively. Then he plays d5. He was just kind of taunting me with like, you can't play en passant. How do you feel about that? How I feel about that is I'm just going to develop my pieces, or that's how I should have felt about that. I'm going to develop my pieces, play bishop g5, and threaten this. Like, that's the easiest way to play here. But then I go queen to e2, and I re-engage the threat on that knight. But that is a problem because knight e4. And at this point, the spectators started to come in, and they saw Mel play knight e4, and they were like, oh boy, that knight is lodged in there, isn't it? And he was like, yeah, it sure is. Knight c3, queen to b4. This is a mistake for a weird reason. And that reason is because you can play this, defending from this angle and attacking the knight with two pieces. I don't know why. Like, sometimes I try to like figure out computer moves on the fly in these openings. Like queen e3 just makes so little sense. Like, you just go up? What, are you trying to put the bishop out? Like, I have no idea. You're trying to play bishop d3, and maybe that's it? I don't know. As the following line is, the computer line is bishop here, a3, and then queen to b6, and not taking, because if you take d4 here, and then long castles is really good because this pawn just sucks. Oh boy, computers are fun. A3, and he gets to take. Because if I take back, he takes here. And if I take here, catastrophic blunder, find the way that he can win a rook. This one should be pretty easy to see. And if you're able to figure it out pretty easily, probably this. Boom. Boom. Bishop blocks, that's still happening. Queen blocks, that's still happening. Knight blocks, that's still happening. Because you know how in like some of these times where there's a queen here, checking the king and attacking the rook, the bishop can sometimes move and clear the queen's defense of that rook. Queen is on e2. Can't do that. So I take the queen. And I just accept the trade, but this is really bad because I lose a pawn, and my structure over here sucks. This pawn is going to get overrun at some point because bishop g4 might be coming. So I have to respond to this check, and then he could probably just go bishop here. But instead he castles. And I'm like, okay, what if I do this now? Because I can play bishop b5 and then take on c7 if he moves the knight. I'm getting back into the game, baby. Bishop takes d2. He trades the bishops and then goes f6, trying to chip away at my center, maybe putting the rook here. The spectators were going crazy at this. They were like, oh boy, he's trying to challenge that pawn center. That's a really strong pawn center. Oh boy, that's what her game is all about. If you get to those pawns, you open up lines. Come on, Mel, you can do it. Like I'm That's what I had to deal with when I was thinking of my moves in this game. Luckily, they didn't touch my pieces at all during this game, though. That's something that I was happy about. Bishop b5, and he takes because he thought he was getting a big pawn with an attack and a hit on this. But I was like, well, can't I just go here? No. The correct way to respond to that is to play this and just give up your knight completely, play f3 to stop this from happening, and then this and this. And that's how white draws despite being down 2 points of material. Neither of us saw that. So I played here, and after this, you can go here, and then here, and here. And the reason this isn't terribly bad, even though all your pawns look like they're falling, is because of this in the future, right? It's because of this. So the rook takes, and then I go rook c7, and I'm now winning. I'm after rook takes g2, I'm winning if I play the most ridiculous looking move. Bishop to e8. And if he does nothing, then bishop f7. And if he goes king f8, how do you mount the attack? How do you take it up a notch? Audience moment. And if you're able to figure it out, rook f1. Can't go here, can't go here, can't go here, and you're getting hit with a discovery. So the best you can do is do this and get hit with bishop e6, hitting this, and the king, and then get invading. Like, that's just absolutely horrible. But I play rook f1 in this position because I'm like, well, I'm going to get the 2 rooks on the 7th rank. In the chess community, they're called pigs on the 7th. I'm going to get the pigs on the 7th, and the spectators were saying this too. They're like, oh boy, those rooks are being a little bit uncomfortable for you, huh, Mel? They were kind of commiserating with him a little bit. Like, yeah, I got games like that sometimes. Bishop h3, and now I invade with the rooks. And there's a problem here, though. There's a problem. Is that Mel, the spectators went bananas after this move. Rook c8. They were like, oh my god, Mel, you are so smart, man. That is so tricky. That bishop all the way over there is defending that lonely rook, and everything is defended. Like, Shane was losing his mind over this game. It was so funny. But, kind of thinking about that, I played rook b7 and blundered. And he can win a piece. And the spectators were like, "Oh my god, is he actually going to do it?" Because I think Jim and Luke probably saw the move, but it's this, and then here, audience moment. How can he win a piece on the next move? And the spectators pretty much told him the move. They were like, "Oh my god, he's got the thing, and then he can win the piece." Like they were saying it to him before he even made the move. I was like, "Come on, guys, this wouldn't pass the chess.com or the US Chess Federation anti-cheating measures. So can we cut it out?" But I didn't say anything because I knew I was going to lose because I also saw the move. Audience moment, can you figure it out? And if you're able to figure it out, the move is this. Boom and boom, right? King e5 takes here, and then I resign. And Mel shook my hand and was like, "Thank you for resigning, man. I really got to get home," because it was a late game. And it was late at night. It was getting close to 9, and all the older guys there, it was like, "Oh, it's time for bed. It's time to get home to my wife so she doesn't think I'm out drinking or something." But anyway, that was the good, the bad, and the ugly of the chess recap, and I will see you in the next video.